Turning 62 wasn't just another birthday for me. It was a profound awakening. Suddenly, the subtle changes I'd been ignoring for years became impossible to overlook. What began as minor annoyances, a new wrinkle here, an unfamiliar ache there, gradually transformed into undeniable physical transformations that reshaped not just my appearance, but my entire relationship with my body and self-image. This journey through aging hasn't been easy, but it's been enlightening. I've moved through stages of denial, frustration, and eventually, acceptance. Along the way, I've discovered that each physical change carries with it emotional challenges that society rarely prepares us for. More importantly, I've learned that while we can't stop the aging process, we absolutely can control how we respond to it. In this deeply personal exploration, I want to walk you through the 5 most significant changes I've experienced in my appearance since turning 62. But this isn't just a list of physical transformations. It's a roadmap of the emotional hurdles each one presented, and most crucially, the practical solutions I've discovered that have helped me not just cope, but thrive through these changes. The metamorphosis of my skin caught me completely off guard. It wasn't just about wrinkles, though those certainly made their presence known, but about fundamental changes in my skin's very structure. The once resilient canvas of my face and body had become thinner, almost parchment-like in some areas. I noticed veins mapping their way across my hands and legs in intricate blue patterns that had never been so visible before. Age spots began appearing like tiny ink stains on my skin, particularly on areas most exposed to the sun over the years. My hands, forearms, and décolletage. The dryness was relentless. No amount of moisturizer seemed sufficient to combat the Sahara-like patches that would appear on my shins, elbows, and even my face. My skin had developed a new sensitivity too. Products I'd used for years suddenly caused irritation, and even my clothing fabrics needed to be reconsidered as some materials now caused unexpected itching or redness. This transformation triggered a complex emotional response. Initially, I found myself staring in the mirror, stretching my skin taut with my fingers, trying to recreate the smoothness of my younger years. I became hyper-aware of every new spot or line, documenting them like unwelcome guests at a party that wouldn't leave. There were moments of genuine grief, not just for my changing appearance, but for the loss of control over something that had always been mine. I cycled through phases of expensive miracle creams and serums, each promising to turn back time. The disappointment when they inevitably failed to deliver was crushing. I began avoiding certain lighting. Those harsh department store dressing room mirrors became my nemesis. Photographs became a source of anxiety rather than joy, as I'd scrutinize every pore and shadow. Through this journey, I discovered that the path forward wasn't about reversing time, but about working in harmony with my skin's new needs. Hydration became my holy grail, but I learned it needed to be approached from multiple angles. Topically, I switched to richer, ceramide-based creams that created a protective barrier on my skin. I discovered the magic of applying moisturizer to damp skin to lock in hydration. Internally, I upped my water intake significantly, but also incorporated omega-3 rich foods like salmon and flax seeds, which help maintain skin's lipid barrier. Collagen-supporting nutrients became a priority. Bone broth entered my weekly meal rotation, and vitamin C-rich foods became staples for their role in collagen production. Sun protection transformed from a seasonal concern to a daily ritual. I learned that thinning skin is particularly vulnerable to UV damage, which accelerates aging and increases cancer risk. I now apply broad-spectrum SPF 50 every single morning, regardless of the weather or my plans. I keep sunscreen in my car, my purse, and by every sink in the house. Wide-brimmed hats and UPF-rated clothing became wardrobe essentials for extended outdoor time. My entire skincare philosophy shifted from aggressive to nurturing. Gone were the harsh physical scrubs and alcohol-based toners that stripped my skin. Instead, I embraced gentle chemical exfoliants with lactic acid that work without abrasion. Hyaluronic acid serums became my best friend for their incredible moisture-binding properties. I discovered peptide-infused products that help support skin's natural repair processes. Most importantly, I learned to listen to my skin. When it's irritated, I simplify my routine. When it's dry, I layer hydration like a skincare sandwich. The mindset shift was perhaps the most powerful transformation. Instead of seeing my wrinkles as flaws, I began viewing them as a living autobiography. The crow's feet, evidence of countless smiles and laughter. The forehead lines, proof of a life spent thinking deeply. The delicate skin, a reminder to handle myself and others with more gentleness. This reframing didn't happen overnight, but gradually, I found myself touching my face with more affection than criticism. My hair's transformation was perhaps the most visually dramatic change. The graying was expected, but the texture revolution caught me completely off guard. My once thick, cooperative hair became finer, not just in color but in actual strand diameter. The volume I'd taken for granted disappeared, leaving my hair feeling wispy and insubstantial. The shedding was alarming. I'd find strands on my pillow, in the shower drain, wrapped around my hairbrush in distressing quantities. My parts seemed to widen imperceptibly each month, and the hair around my temples became noticeably sparser. The texture changed too. My previously straight hair developed a strange new wave pattern that made styling unpredictable. Hair is so intimately tied to identity and femininity. I found myself staring at old photos, running my fingers through images of my younger self's lush hair. There was a sense of mourning, not just for the aesthetic loss, but for the time and money I'd invested in coloring and styling what now felt like a disappearing asset. I became self-conscious about windy days that might reveal thinning areas, avoided swimming because wet hair showed the scalp more, and found myself strategically arranging my hair for photos. The temptation to try every thickening shampoo and growth serum on the market was strong, but the results were consistently disappointing. My hair journey taught me that adaptation, not resistance, was the path to confidence. I completely overhauled my hair care routine. Sulfate-free shampoos became essential. They clean without stripping precious natural oils that thinning hair desperately needs. I learned to wash less frequently to prevent dryness, using dry shampoo in between when needed. Conditioners became focused on moisture rather than volume, applied mainly to the ends to avoid weighing down the roots. Heat styling took a back seat as I discovered how damaging blow dryers and flat irons could be to already fragile hair. When I do use heat, I always apply a thermal protectant first. I embraced air-drying techniques that enhance my hair's natural texture rather than fighting it. Silk pillowcases replaced cotton to reduce friction and breakage overnight. Regular trims became non-negotiable, not just for style but for hair health. Split ends travel up the hair shaft, causing more breakage, so I maintain a strict 6 to 8 week trimming schedule. I experimented with shorter styles that actually gave the illusion of more volume by removing weight from thinning ends. My stylist taught me strategic layering techniques that create movement and fullness where I need it most. The decision to embrace my natural gray was transformative. At first, it felt like surrender, but gradually became an act of empowerment. The grow-out process required patience, about 18 months of awkward phases, but the freedom I gained was worth every difficult day. No more roots showing, no more chemical smells, no more scheduling my life around touch-up appointments. Most surprisingly, my silver hair became a source of compliments and even admiration. Younger women would stop me to say they hoped their hair would look like mine when it went gray. The color is uniquely mine, a mix of pewter, silver, and white that no bottle could replicate. I've come to see it as a crown of wisdom I've earned through living. The change in my posture happened so gradually I didn't notice until I saw an unposed photo of myself. There I was, shoulders rounded forward, head slightly jutted, spine curved in what I'd come to recognize as the aging posture. It wasn't just aesthetic. I could feel it in my body. My upper back aches after long periods of sitting. I caught myself leaning on counters or furniture for support when standing. My neck seemed to crane forward as if pulled by invisible strings. Posture communicates so much about vitality and confidence without saying a word. Seeing myself develop this stoop triggered deep concerns about how others might perceive me, as old, frail, or diminished. I worried it might affect professional opportunities or social interactions. There was also genuine physical discomfort. The poor posture exacerbated existing aches and made me feel fatigued more quickly. Reclaiming my posture became a holistic mission involving physical adjustments, environmental changes, and mental shifts. Daily stretching and yoga became my foundation. I discovered that tight chest muscles were pulling my shoulders forward, while weak upper back muscles couldn't counteract the pull. A simple doorway stretch, placing my forearms on either side of a doorframe and gently leaning forward, became a daily ritual to open my chest. Yoga poses like cobra and locust strengthened my posterior chain. Core strengthening changed everything. A strong core supports proper spinal alignment effortlessly. Pilates became my secret weapon, with exercises like the 100 and pelvic curls rebuilding my deep abdominal muscles. I incorporated planks into my routine, starting with just 15 seconds and gradually building endurance. Ergonomic adjustments made maintenance easier. I raised my computer monitor to eye level to prevent hunching. My office chair was replaced with one offering proper lumbar support. I set hourly posture check reminders on my phone. When the alarm sounds, I roll my shoulders back, lift my chest, and align my ears over my shoulders. The psychological shift was equally important. I stopped associating straight posture with trying to look young, and started associating it with feeling strong and present. Standing tall became an act of self-respect rather than vanity. When I catch myself slouching now, I don't berate myself. I simply adjust with kindness, as I would for a dear friend. My hands seemed to age overnight. Veins that had always been discreet became raised and prominent, like topographic maps of my circulatory system. The skin lost elasticity, becoming looser around my knuckles. Age spots, those brown solar lentigines, appeared across my hands and wrists like scattered tea stains. The skin texture changed too, becoming drier and more crepe-like. My nails become more brittle, ridges forming along their surfaces. Hands are our primary tools for interacting with the world. They create, comfort, communicate. Seeing them change so dramatically made me feel oddly disconnected from my own body. I found myself hiding them in photos, keeping them in my pockets during conversations, even avoiding handshakes. There was a sense of vulnerability, as if my aging hands were betraying my age in ways my carefully maintained face might not. Learning to care for and appreciate my changing hands became an unexpected journey of self-acceptance. Sun protection became hand care priority number one. I learned that hands show age quickly because we often neglect to protect them from UV damage. Now, any sunscreen left on my palms after applying to my face gets rubbed into the backs of my hands. I keep a dedicated hand sunscreen in my car to reapply while driving. For extended outdoor activities, I wear UPF-rated gloves. Targeted treatments made visible differences. Retinol creams, long used on my face, became part of my nightly hand routine to improve texture and fade spots. Vitamin C serums helped brighten and even tone. For intense moisture, I'd slather on thick creams at night and wear cotton gloves to bed, waking up to noticeably softer skin. Nail care took on new importance. Regular manicures, often done at home, kept my nails looking polished and healthy. I learned that ridges could be minimized with proper filing and buffing. Cuticle oil became a constant companion to prevent painful hangnails. The most profound change came in how I viewed my hands. Instead of seeing them as aging, I began seeing them as living records of my life's work. Those prominent veins? They've carried lifeblood through decades of love and labor. The spots? Evidence of years spent gardening, hiking, and living outdoors. The loose skin? A reminder of all these hands have held. Children, grandchildren, the hands of loved ones now gone. Now when I look at my hands, I see not just age, but history. And that's something no cream could ever improve upon. No matter how much sleep I got, my eyes perpetually looked tired. Dark circles took up permanent residence beneath them, with puffiness that varied day to day but never fully disappeared. My eyelids developed a slight droop, and the skin around my eyes became thinner, with fine wrinkles radiating outward like sun rays. The hollows beneath my eyes became more pronounced, creating shadows that no concealer could completely erase. Eyes are how we connect with others. They're the first feature people notice in conversation. Feeling like mine constantly broadcast exhaustion made me self-conscious in social and professional settings. I found myself avoiding eye contact in bright lighting, tilting my head downward in photos to minimize shadows, and becoming overly reliant on color-correcting makeup. Addressing my eye area concerns required both practical solutions and perspective shifts. Sleep optimization became crucial. While quantity was important, I learned quality mattered more. A consistent sleep schedule, cool bedroom temperature, and blue light blocking before bed all contributed to more restorative rest. I elevated my head slightly with an extra pillow to prevent fluid accumulation that could cause morning puffiness. Dietary adjustments helped from the inside out. Reducing sodium intake minimized water retention that exacerbated under-eye bags. Increasing foods rich in vitamin K, like leafy greens, and antioxidants, like berries, supported circulation and skin health. Staying hydrated kept the delicate eye area from looking sunken. Topical treatments provided noticeable improvements. Caffeine-based serums became morning staples for their temporary vasoconstrictive effects on dark circles. Cold therapy, whether chilled spoons, jade rollers, or refrigerated eye masks, helped reduce puffiness. I learned to apply eye creams with the lightest touch, using my ring finger to avoid tugging fragile skin. Professional treatments offered additional options. For special occasions, I'd occasionally get a professional eye treatment involving lymphatic drainage massage. I considered but ultimately decided against more invasive options like fillers, choosing instead to embrace my natural aging process. The perspective shift was most valuable. I realized that while my eyes might show signs of aging, they also reflect a lifetime of experiences. The slight droop comes from decades of smiling and laughing. The fine lines are evidence of years spent squinting at sunsets, reading beloved books, tearing up at touching moments. Now when I look in the mirror, I see not just aging eyes, but eyes that have witnessed a rich, full life, and that's something to celebrate. Through all these changes, the most profound lesson has been this. Aging isn't happening to me, it is me. It's not separate from living but evidence of it. Each gray hair, each wrinkle, each change represents time, experience, survival. The resistance I initially felt wasn't about the changes themselves, but about the cultural narrative that says aging is something to fear, disguise, or apologize for. In rejecting that narrative, I found a new kind of freedom, the freedom to define beauty and worth on my own terms. This journey has taught me that while we can't control the aging process, we absolutely can control how we relate to it. We can choose to see our changing bodies not as betrayals, but as maps of our unique life stories. We can approach each new phase with curiosity rather than dread, adaptation rather than resistance. Most importantly, I've learned that aging isn't a solitary experience. By sharing our stories, our struggles, and our solutions, we create space for others to navigate this journey with more grace and less fear. So I'll ask you now, what changes have surprised you most as you've aged? How have you learned to adapt, to accept, maybe even to celebrate them? Your story matters, because every honest conversation about aging helps dismantle the stigma surrounding it. And if this resonates with you, pass it along. Share it with someone who might be struggling with their own changing reflection. Because the more we talk openly about aging, the more we transform it from something to fear into something to embrace as the natural, beautiful process of being alive.